Hi, my name is Drew Tonneson. I work for Dell in engineering on PowerFlex and PowerMax. In conjunction with my blog post, I wanted to go through the installation of the SDC on a Proxmox environment, and then the presentation of a volume to that environment and how you consume it so that you can create virtual machines or containers on it. So the first thing I'm showing here, this is the Proxmox environment. I have 3 nodes, which I've put inside of a cluster. And when you place them inside of a cluster, then your storage is available here at the high level at the data center. But here you'll see all the different local storage for each of these hosts. All right, so I haven't added anything to these except what you get when you do the installation. Now, if we jump over to the environment, as I said in the blog, this is a simple setup. It's just 3 nodes, right? If we go and look at the resources for the system itself, in particular, we want to just look at the IP addresses that are going to be available inside the MDM cluster. So I'm just going to show you the SDS, which is the same IPs as the MDM, which is what we're going to point to for SDC. So I have a public network and a private network. In the post, I talked about setting up the private VLAN inside of Proxmox. I guess I could just jump over here and show you. So if I look at an individual node and look at the network, you can see I have this separate VLAN set up. So that separate VLAN is going to let me talk to that IP address, which is the same one I'm using for the MDM cluster, which is going to allow me to present volumes down to it. If I look at the hosts, I've already configured 251 and 252. And so what we're going to do is we'll install the SDC on 253 and then use that one for presentation of the volume. So the first thing we want to do is inside the CLI, in order to use PowerFlex storage, you've got to make a change to the LVM configuration, because otherwise what happens is the Debian OS on here will basically complain and say that it doesn't know what a PowerFlex block device is. And it's kind of a bug. It's just the nature of how this Debian environment is set up. So what we want to do is go into our lvm.conf file. Okay, and if I go to the very bottom, because the conf file is basically just it's almost like a README. It's all pounded out except when you get to the bottom. So at the bottom, you'll see this right here is the standard configuration, and you can see why it's put in here for ZFS and stuff. In order to get the PowerFlex volumes to be recognized, though, we have to add this line here, which is types, and then equal to SCINI and 16. And inside, this has got to be inside the bracket. So you can see here's the start of the bracket, here's the end of the bracket. So you want to do this before you do the installation of the SDC, so that when you go to where you're going to create the volume group, that it's going to be able to create it. So let's pop out of here. You want to do that on, again, each of the nodes. So I've already done it on these 2 and this one here. If you don't set it up on each of the nodes, then when you create the LVM, what will happen is only one of your nodes is going to see it, because the other ones aren't going to be able to recognize the device. So just make sure that you do. Okay, so let's go to the root directory where I have the SDC. So the first thing we need to do when you install the SDC is you have to set the MDM IP address. So this is the IPs I showed you, which it's going to communicate. So I can actually map volumes down to it. And this goes into a config file when you install the SDC. Along with it is a GUID. Now, if you've ever installed an ESXi, you have to produce the GUID yourself and then give it to ESXi. When you do it on Linux, it'll generate it for you, so you don't have to worry about that. So all we have to do is just install the package. This is the process that actually runs that it communicates with the PowerFlex environment and allows us to present storage down to it. Okay, so we have the SDC installed. If we jump back into PowerFlex, we'll come back in here, we see our 253 here. So the first thing I usually do is rename it, just so you don't get confused. All right. So now we can go provision the volume. So create a volume here. We'll give it a name, some size. So let's create that. And now we're going to map it. Now, at this point, this is I wouldn't say it's a bit of a quirk, but it's just how Proxmox works. We're going to want the volume to be seen by all three of the hosts. But initially, if we present the volume to all three hosts, we're still only creating the volume group on one. And so what would happen is the other two hosts aren't going to be able to read it. And the only way to get it to read it is either you reboot the host or you unmap and remap, right? So we're just going to save this step and we're just going to only map to 253 to start with here. So we're going to map that, and then we'll come back out to 253 fdisk minus L, and you can see here's our disk. Okay. So the first thing we're going to do is we'll create a partition on it. You can use fdisk to do this if you prefer. And then we'll create a physical volume, pv create, metadata size, which is not required. The Y means just don't prompt me. The two Fs mean destroy what's ever on the disk. There's nothing on the disk, so it doesn't matter. Now we have our physical volume, which is there. And then if we run a vg create, we'll create the volume group. And vg display, and there's our volume group. Okay. Once we've done that, we can go back into the UI, okay? And remember, we're at the top level here at the data center. We click on the storage, and we're going to do add, and we're going to do LVM. We're going to give it a name, PowerFlex volume 1, I guess. Volume group, right? Now, right now, all we have is 1 because it's only scanning 251. We actually want it to scan 253, and there it found our volume group. Okay, and here's our nodes. Now, we want to select the other two nodes even though we haven't presented the device yet because we want to make sure it's available. We want to share it, and I typically click this so it wipes it when I'm done with it. You don't have to, but I do. And there's our volume. So if I go out to the host itself here, I'll see I have this volume group available to me. And now I can create virtual machines on it as storage or containers if I wish. If I look out on my other hosts, 252 or 251, right, nothing's there because I haven't presented the volumes yet. So we'll pop back out to here, to the Proxmox volume, and we'll map it to the other two hosts now. And by doing this, we're basically forcing the Debian operating system to read it, as a new device, and then it finds the volume group on it, and so we should be good. So here, if I run fdisk minus L, I have my disk there with the partition, and lo and behold, it found the volume group. Right? So if I come back out to my UI and reload here it is, and reload here, it's already there. So just make sure you do the steps in the right order, and it'll work out. If you forget, it's not a big deal. Just unmap the device, remap the device. It's far better than rebooting the host. I have tried other methodologies besides unmap, remap, but you can't really force it to rescan. Sometimes I've read some different things where if you run PV create against the partition and then force it to read it again, it will then recognize it. That doesn't work. If you try doing that, basically Debian will come back and say, actually, I don't even see a disk, which is bizarre, but that's what it does. So that's how we present PowerFlex storage. And at this point now, if I wanted to, create a virtual machine, so here you can see our storage is available. Okay. Thanks very much.